Core Academy started a live video. We're good to go. What's up, everybody? Super excited about tonight. Tonight we are going to be talking to Brendon Todd. Brendon is an amazing person. I've known Brendon for about 8 years now. He is definitely one of the most resilient people I have ever met. He's a gutsy guy. He's a competitor. He's a warrior on the golf course. So I am incredibly lucky. We are incredibly lucky to be talking to Brendon tonight. Brendon is a three-time winner on the PGA Tour. He's earned every bit of that. Trust me, this guy is a workhorse. So I'm going to see if Brendon is on here. Again, this is the second time I'm doing this, so I'm getting close to being an expert, but we'll get there. Let's see. Here we go. Right. Brendon, you there? Let's see here. Brendon.
What's up, Bill?
How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Doing good. I was just bragging about you.
Appreciate it.
I
don't have the best light, but it looks pretty good.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay, Brendon's down in Georgia, living the life. What are you doing during quarantine?
Man, just doing a lot of parenting. We've got 3 kids, 1, 3, and 5. And fortunately, we've had great weather the last couple of weeks. So, we've just been cooking 3 or 4 meals a day and getting outside as much as possible. Playing baseball, swing sets, basketball down in the cul-de-sac. And, just trying to stay as active as we can and, come together as a family during this difficult time.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been challenging. So I think it's important to make the most of it. And, in reality, we don't have got a lot of time to spend with our family. We're working so much. And so
right.
I think it's especially you. I mean, you're on the road. How many weeks a year are you on the road?
About 30, I would say,
30.
most years.
Yeah, it's a grind. And then when you're not on the road, you're busting your butt on the golf course.
Right. Yeah, you're practicing, preparing for the next event or the next stretch of events. And, it's a great life, but it's definitely one that comes with, its challenges as a family for sure. When I was starting to play well last year, I was gone 3, 4, 5 week stretches at a time. So it was tough to be away from the kids for that long. I try and pop back for a night or two to see everybody. But, my wife's a rock, Rachel, and, we've really come together during this time, and we're just excited about the future.
Yeah, no, it's pretty exciting times for you guys outside of this circumstance. But hey, so the main reason for me wanting to jump on the call with you is to talk about how somebody achieves greatness. Like you are one of the best in the world at what you do, and I think if you look at some of the greatest golfers in the history of the game, they are a certain way. They're bombers or they're grinders or what have you. And I want to kind of pick your brain about why you think you've achieved greatness. So that's going to be the main reason for our call. But prior to that, I just wanted to jump in and ask you a couple questions that people were really interested in.
Yeah, sounds great. Shoot.
Okay, cool. So number one, had a friend of mine ask me, what's the deal with the sick putter and what made you go that route?
Yeah,
it's not a putter you see a lot of, right?
No, but there are 3 guys now using it on the PGA Tour, and all 3 of us have wins on the PGA Tour with it. So Bryson DeChambeau obviously being the first guy using the arm lock, and I think he might have 7 wins with that putter. And then Lonto Griffin won the Houston Open the week before I won Bermuda with the sick flow putter. And I had picked one up in actually the John Deere last summer, and I used it for a week, and it was really close to being great, but my speed wasn't very good, which is one of the things that me and you always talked a lot about. Being a great putter is, the most important thing probably is having great speed, so then you can read the putts all the same. And so because of that, I went back away from it to my TaylorMade Spider, which I had been using before the stick putter. And, I was able to putt pretty well with that during the Web.com finals, or I guess it was the Corn Ferry Tour finals at the time, and picked up the second place in Columbus, and earned my PGA Tour card back. But when I got back on tour in the fall and started to have some struggles at the beginning, it was mostly putting, which is a good thing for me because putting is my strength. And so it meant I was hitting the ball well. I was still shooting, even par or better every round. I just wasn't quite holding enough putts to, play on the weekend. So in Las Vegas, I picked up the SICK putter. One of the things I liked about it is it's got great technology. It has grooves, which is what I had in the Rife putter and the TaylorMade Spider putter that I've used well. It's also a little bit heavier. It's 365 grams, which I think allows me to have a very smooth, controlled stroke. It's not too light. And I've been putting with heavier putters for a handful of years now, so to have a heavier blade style putter, I think was nice for me. And then lastly, they have the descending loft technology on there, which is pretty cool on the face, which basically means that the bottom section is 0 degrees, the next section is 1, then 2, and then 3 degrees on the face. So each section of the face has a different loft based on where you hit it. So if you kind of hit up on it a little too much, it's going to catch it low on the face. So it's still only going to launch it mostly at your impact angle. But if you kind of hit level on it or down on it, hit high on the face, and it's got 3 degrees, and you're striking down 1 on it, that neutralizes to a 2-degree launch angle. So almost anywhere you strike on the face, you're going to launch it between 1 and 2 degrees, which in their studies show that's the optimal launch to get the golf ball to come out of its depression and start rolling end over end. So, I mean, I have to say that's got to be important stuff. I mean, the weight, the grooves, the loft technology, because, when I got hot the last, 3 or 4 months with that putter, it was lights out.
Lights out. Yeah, it's an understatement. Yeah, without a doubt. Brendon is one of the best putters I've ever seen in my life, if not the greatest putter I've ever seen in my life. So
Appreciate it.
Whatever putter you're using, that says a lot. There's no doubt about that. Do you feel like it's, being one of the best putters in the world? If not most weeks, you are the best putter in the world. Probably having you're one of the best chippers in the world. Do you feel like that allows you to be more aggressive into the greens? Do you feel like you have more confidence into the green, knowing that you up and down?
Yeah, it certainly gives me just confidence in my game. Off the tee into the greens, it provides me the confidence and the support that I don't have to be perfect tee to green, and almost anywhere I hit it, I'm going to have a chance to make par or birdie. So, I would say at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily make me more aggressive into the greens, because what it ends up doing is freeing me up to hit more greens. Because I know if I'm on 15 or 16 greens in regulation, I'm taking out a lot of bogey opportunities, and I'm giving myself the opportunity to hold a putt for birdie. So it kind of frees me up to play probably a little more conservatively off the tee into the green, so that I give myself more birdie putts.
Yeah. And do you feel like when you have a tucked pin, do you feel like you can be more aggressive at it?
I do. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you miss the green short side, you're kind of determining if you have an uphill chip or a downhill chip. If you have an uphill chip, then excuse me, you go right at it, because my short game is good enough to always get that up and down. But if I'm going to be dead, if I go at that flag and miss a short sided, then I'm going to play conservative like everybody else.
Yeah, gotcha. Let's see. Another really good question here, which I think you'd be the best one to answer this, would be the main difference between a top college player and having success on the PGA Tour.
Well, the main difference is probably experience, right? So it's experience not only on the golf course and in tournaments, but in life. Because in college, you have a coach who's setting up all of your travel, paying for all of your travel, driving you to and from the airport. You've got probably very good practice facilities. And, I just think things are kind of catered to you when you're in college. And when you get out of college, you have to get out and, grow up and be a big boy and, kind of live your own life and plan your travel and pick which events you're going to play. Be smart about where you live, what your off-course habits are, what your on-course habits are. And so I just think there's a lot of maturity that goes into being a good professional golfer. And you see a lot of good college players not make it. And oftentimes you can point to some of the ways they live their life as to why they didn't make it. Because when I look around my peers that came out the same year as me, most of the guys who have done well are guys who had their stuff together on and off the golf course. And most of the guys who didn't, there was some missing ingredient there. And so, whether it's burnout, whether they've just been nothing but golf their whole life, or, maybe they don't have a great family, or maybe, they don't work hard when they're home. They don't put in the hours in the gym and on the practice tee. Then, I think those are the things you see. The guys who are just kind of well-rounded, very consistent, very confident in themselves are the ones who succeed from college to pro golf.
Yeah. And do you feel like, like right now, you probably wouldn't say that you're one of the longest hitters on tour, right?
I'm one of the shortest.
Right. So, and you've won 3 times. You've won 2 times over the last year. Well,
Right.
My daughter just walked in the door, so
Hey, Mackenzie.
she's very excited.
Love it.
Look at her nails.
Hey, Mackenzie. You going night-night?
Say hi to Brendon.
Hi.
Say bye to Brendon now. So here, go see mommy. Sorry about that, Brendon.
All good.
You know how it is.
Yeah, my kids are yelling upstairs. It's great.
Okay. So where was I here? Munchkin, you gotta go. You gotta go see mommy. Okay. All right. You could sit with daddy for a little bit. Okay. So dealing with being one of the shortest hitters on tour, that you would think that that's one of the things that could bring you wins, which it can. But in terms of like you're not one of the longest hitters on tour. How much pressure is it to go out there, deal with that huge component of not hitting the ball very far and still going out there and winning?
Well, I think it, in ways it makes it harder, and in ways it makes it easier. The distance I hit the golf ball, I can virtually swing at a pretty high percentage and know it's only going to go that far. So when you get down the bag to the short irons and the wedges, I don't have the difficulty with distance control that some of the bombers have. I've always said the reason Rory might struggle with his wedges is, his pitching wedge, he can hit 160 yards. So, the difference between his 60-degree and his pitching wedge is a pretty big gap. He's got big gaps in his wedges. They all go high with a lot of spin. So, I mean, controlling your distance when you're moving the ball that far is more difficult than, say, me, who my wedge goes 130 and I can't hit it much more than that, and my lob wedge goes 90 and it can't go much further than that. So if I can lay up those numbers, I know I can pretty much max it out, keep it at a penetrating trajectory, and knock it close at a high percentage. So, I think what you always see is the shorter hitters tend to have the best wedge games and the best accuracy. And so, I try to just kind of work my game around that. I mean, I've given so many college players the speech on it's not about distance, it's about accuracy, because at the end of the day, no matter how far you hit it, you have to be accurate to win. Bubba Watson, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, they're the most accurate of the bombers in the world. There's 1,000 guys who can hit the ball 330 off the tee, but only a handful of them can hit the ball straight and get the ball in the hole. So, from that standpoint, it makes it easier. When you go up against a good bomber, and they're on, there's certain golf courses you don't have a great chance. I remember playing with Rory in Atlanta at East Lake for the Tour Championship, and, he's hitting his driver 50 by me, and he shoots 65 like it's nothing, and I'm sitting there just like, wow, he made that look real easy. But so it was intimidating at the time. I mean, I was 27 or 8, and in my first Tour Championship, he's probably playing his 5th or 6th in a row, and he's smashing it by me, shooting 65. But, I learned from it, and I was able to turn around 2 days later and shoot 65 on Sunday on the same golf course. So it just shows that it doesn't matter how you do it, you can get it done a bunch of different ways. And for me, it's just about, keeping my head up, focusing one shot at a time, and putting the ball in play and then scoring.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of leads me into like my main topic with you, which is, how does somebody achieve greatness? Like you come from a background where you didn't really hit the ball very far, and you're playing with these guys that are just bombing it. And, I think for a lot of people that'd be intimidating, so you could consider that a disadvantage on tour, even though you're saying it's an advantage. And I think that's why you're great at what you do, because you're turning what might look like a disadvantage into advantage. So what do you think are the components of, forget about golf, but just in life, how do you achieve greatness in life first and foremost? How do you think you became one of the best in the world at what you do?
Well, I think it's a lot like what you said. I mean, trying to find ways to turn negatives into positives, or finding the best in your situation. And so, one thing I prided myself on, whether I was playing well on the PGA Tour or playing poorly on the PGA Tour, I kind of treated myself. I took the situation I was in, I tried to make the best of it, and I went to whatever tournament I could find, whether it was a mini tour event or a major championship, and I tried to go compete and give myself the best chance to win. So I think just having that attitude, no matter what level you are in golf, is what's going to breed success at that level and give you the chance to get to the next level that you're trying to achieve. And then for me, I come from a great family. I had two older brothers that I was always competing against growing up. And, it kind of taught me work ethic, because in order to beat them and their friends, I always had to go out there and work pretty hard and, focus and just kind of find ways to make my game better in order to compete with the older guys. And so from in junior golf, I was fortunate to play national tournaments from an early age, and I kind of sharpened my game through competition. And I really think if you're going to be good at golf, competition is what breeds success, really. I mean, the more times you can put the irons in the fire and, gain that experience and then go make the tweaks you need to go to the next tournament is really how you're going to improve. And also, obviously having a good attitude along with that is so important.
Yeah, and it's not just an upward trajectory to success either. I mean, I think it's well known that you've had a couple real challenges in your professional life, and almost to the point where you felt like it might be time to hang it up. And
Right.
you wouldn't become one of the best in the world if you didn't have that sort of resilience, right? And you feel like
Right.
you got that from your family, but I think there's still something deeper in you that you have that a lot of people don't have, that have come up with strong families and whatnot.
Well, there has to be some talent level, deep down in there, right? I mean, I was able to become, one of the best junior golfers of my class. I was the first team All-American in college. So I've won at every level. And so
Yeah.
no matter what struggle I went through in professional golf, I was always able to sort of lean back on that experience and that confidence and know that, look, when things calm down and my game is feeling good, I can play with anybody anywhere. And so,
Hmm.
I just think that fortunately I had the previous success to always lean on and maintain belief that when my game feels good, it's good enough. And I never thought my game wasn't good enough. I'm just a competitor who's always trying to make my game a little bit better. And so, like millions of players, you kind of get to the upper echelon, maybe, of the level you're trying to play at, and you realize, okay, these are maybe the things I can improve, or, you know, what can I do to become slightly better and contend better in these tournaments. And occasionally it backfires, and occasionally, you become a little bit better and, win the next golf tournament. We see it up and down the tour.
Yeah. And how do you feel like you got so good at dealing with pressure? I mean, you've dealt with pressure trying to keep your tour card, trying to keep your job, trying to win your first tournament. I would even say playing with Tiger Woods this year in LA must have been tremendous pressure. What do you think you had to learn over the course of time to be able to handle that sort of pressure?
Yeah, again, I'd say experience. I just think that because I was playing tournaments at an early age, and competing nationally as a junior golfer and as a college golfer against the best fields in college, that I learned so much about, you know, what it means to compete under the gun and compete against guys who are really really good, and you have to play your best to beat them. So I think that experience is number one when it comes to dealing with pressure, and I think belief in yourself, right? And so we keep talking about that, just that deep belief that you have inside of you as a successful athlete, and that's one of those things that I feel like I've always had. That I've always had that work ethic to go make sure I'm prepared for every tournament, and that when I get under the pressure, I have something to lean on. And so, I mean, one thing me and you always worked on was making sure your practice habits prepare you for the most intense pressure moments.
Hmm. Do you feel like it's harder to pull yourself out of a rut like in the lows, or do you feel like it's harder to win a golf tournament? I guess they go hand in hand, but coming down the stretch in the golf tournament, you're playing the best golf of your life. It's just a matter of getting over that hump. Your first win in the Byron Nelson on the PGA Tour, that was enormous. So, do you feel like that's a more challenging thing to deal with, that sort of pressure, or trying to keep your tour card?
Oh man, I think coming out of slumps is the hardest. I mean, no doubt. I mean, there's just your game's in shambles usually, and so you're trying to find the right information. You're trying to find the right headspace to make that information work for you, and then you're also trying to practice it the right way and put it in the competition and maintain confidence in it, even when maybe it doesn't go well. And so I think coming out of slumps the hardest for me as somebody who's won golf tournaments at every level. I've always been a pretty good front runner. When I get in the lead, I usually do pretty well, or I'm able to kind of hold it together. But if it's not going well, it's tough to make those changes. Mid round, mid tournament, mid season, and get your head back above water.
What's one of the most important things you ever learned from your downtimes in your career?
I think it goes back to belief in yourself, simplifying things, and understanding that I'd say for golf, I talked a lot about my slump and that it was physical and then mental, and the way back was actually physical and then mental. People think that if you're hitting it bad or putting bad, it's all mental. Well, generally there was some physical component that caused the bad shots in the first place, and then once you see a couple of them, your mind starts to fear them, and when the fear comes in, that's when you really have sustained slumps or sustained failure. So
Hmm.
when you can fix the physical part and make sure the mechanical part is closer to neutral or accurate, then you can start to see positive results in practice and take them to competition, see the positive result, and then you start to believe that, okay, this is actually going to work. This motion or this stroke is going to create a positive outcome, and I can calm down. I can move the negative thoughts out of my head, and I can start to work on my routine and my confidence, and how I'm agile, in the moment of pressure. And so I just feel like the mental part actually is what comes back last. I mean, I can talk about last year. I mean, I'm coming off years of hitting it right, and I mean, for 6 months at the beginning of 2019 season, I didn't hit a shot right of the in play lines, right? I mean, I hit a lot of good shots. If anything, I was
Hmm.
hitting a little bit of a pull. But it took me 6 months to stop fearing that right shot when I was over the ball. And I realized it at the John Deere. And so, my mental coach, Ward Jarvis, and I had to talk about it and kind of come up with some ways to, move from the planning moment to the execution moment with a little bit more smoothness and confidence so that I could walk in there and say, okay, I'm swinging it good, and I'm going to hit this 5 iron right at that pin, and I just got to accept it and relax and do it. And I mean, it sounds easy, and us golfers know how hard that is.
Yeah, and I think you kind of telling us your story on that front. You're talking about over the course of a very long time. I think people, the challenge in golf is that you're always trying to figure out how to not embarrass yourself today if you're in a slump. And I think that me telling somebody that, all right, just give it a year, give it 2 years, that goes in one ear and out the other. And I think that's one of the
Yeah,
most challenging parts of golf, is that you have to be patient, and everybody's going to go through highs and lows, I think. And I'm pretty sure that you would agree with that.
I think that one of the worst things a player can hear from a teacher is, "Hey, man, you're gonna have to give this 6 months or a year. This is gonna take some time."
Yeah.
Because if it's gonna take that long, it's not. No information's perfect, but it's not that good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you have a talented individual in front of you, especially a professional, and you're telling them it's going to take them 6 months to a year, your information is not good enough, and
Hmm.
and that's just a fact. Because when a pro gets the right information in front of him, he's able to then make the motion, make the adjustment, and do it on a pretty fast pace. I mean, 6 weeks maybe, and you start to see some pretty positive results. And so I think that it's one of those things where, you know, as a professional or an amateur, you've got to seek out the right information, and you've got to find ways to make that information yours so that you can go make the swing that feels comfortable, get the feelings that work for you on the golf course, not as well as the practice tee.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I like that, and I think that making it yours is the key component of that. I think that I always had told you that you can tell the same thing to the same person, multiple different people, and you could interpret it a little bit different. So trying to come up with the sensation that works for you and the feeling that works for you, it might be a little different than I explained or someone else explained, and just trying to make it yours is obviously important.
Yeah, and there's a talent to that, right? I mean, obviously, there's a reason some guys turn into tour pros and some guys don't, and it's probably that ability to take information and turn it into excellent ball striking or excellent putting. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Do you think that if so you had your first win at, what was it, 29? Is that right? 28, 29?
Let's see, 2014. Yeah, I should have been 28, turning 29 that year.
28 turning 29, and if you were 15 years old and someone said to you, you got to wait 13 years to get your first PGA Tour win, what would you have said? Would you be like, game on, I'm in?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think at that time I certainly wasn't too arrogant to think that I was going to win a PGA Tour event before 28. So I would have said, heck yeah, I'm going to win one. Let's go on the journey for sure.
And what about coming out of college? I mean, coming out of college, you were a very good college player. And, so it took you how many years to win your first event? It took you 7 years?
7 years. I think
Yeah.
I still would have accepted it.
Yeah.
Again, I was a good college player. I wasn't the best in my class, but I was very good. And so I got on the PGA Tour, at a fairly quick rate, about a year and a half after school. But the first year was a struggle. It wasn't a tour that came easily to me. So really, before you get on tour, most guys aren't saying, yeah, I'm going to go out there and win real fast. And if you do, you've probably done something previously to prove that. Maybe you won a U.S. Amateur, or you were the player of the year in college or something, or you finished number one on the Corn Ferry Tour money list or something. You did something very, very special to say, I've got this. I expect to go do that. So I would say at that point, 21, 2, 3, 4, I wasn't sitting there saying I should win on the PGA Tour yet. So I felt fortunate to win in 2014.
Yeah. And then how do you feel like you deal with pressure so well? Like I've seen you under pressure, and you're very, very good under pressure. Playing with a lead coming down the stretch, knowing you got to win, you got all the cameras on you, you got every reason to think that you could make a fool out of yourself with hundreds of thousands of people watching you. How do you stay focused on what you're trying to accomplish?
Well, I think that I've always had a great focus about me and a bit of a perfectionist, meticulous mindset. So I think when I get in those moments, I sort of fall back on that. Look, I've just got to do X, Y, and Z here, and I'm going to have a good result. And that's coincidentally worked well for me for a long time. So I think actually the more pressure I have, the more I'm able to walk in and hit quality shots.
And do you feel like you work on some of these focus exercises and develop your focus in practice? Do you feel like you've done it competing with other people just for fun? Where do you feel like
Yeah, a little
you
bit of
really
both.
built that
A little bit of
technique?
both. I think from a pretty early age, I was always happy and comfortable practicing on my own, trying to hole a certain number of putts in a row, or hole a certain number of chip shots in a row to finish a practice session. Or hit a certain number of quality shots at a pin on a range. I mean, I wasn't the guy who walked to the driving range and wanted to talk to everybody. I wanted to go do my work and feel the feelings and see positive results. And I've always felt like if you go to the range every day trying to see positive results and you can walk away every day feeling like you did that, then you're probably going to continue to gain confidence and get a little bit better every time. I mean, we always talked about trying to get 1% better every day. And I think that without realizing it, that's probably always been my practice mantra, really. Walk
Yeah.
away more confident than you were the day before. So I think when you do get under pressure, having that sort of meticulous, strong work ethic in practice is what you really rely on and what probably brings positive results.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that when it comes to practice, I would say that you are always down to business. It's one of the great things that I've respected about you, that you're like, let's get going, let's get focused. You go to the range and you're just like in your own little bubble.
Right.
And I think that that's definitely one of the reasons why you've been so successful under pressure and why you kind of maybe even thrive on it a little bit. So I had one more question of my own here. And then I was hoping maybe we could answer a couple of these questions people are
Sounds
posting.
great.
I I had the opportunity to listen to that podcast, Fairways of Life with Matt Adams, and I really loved one of his questions. He said, "Go back 15 years or so and give yourself some advice. What would you tell the 15, 16-year-old self? What would you say?"
Yeah, I think I would say something you always told me, which is just to have fun, with practice and with golf every day, because it is a game and it is something that you can beat yourself up at, after seeing some tournament results. So, I think that me being a very competitive, meticulous person always took the results of tournaments pretty hard, and I always wanted to go back to the practice tee and make myself a little bit better. And I think the advice that I give a lot of young professionals now, guys who are turning pro, mini tour players and whatnot, is take the game you have in January, work hard during the season, show up for your tournament, show up every day, just keep working, play all your tournaments, see what the results are at the end of the year, make some adjustments, go back the next season, wherever you're playing. It doesn't matter if you're playing the mini tours, the Canadian tour, the China tour, whether you're just scraping by or whether you're playing the PGA Tour. Maybe you shoot right out there. Don't get caught up in what your last streak is, what the previous month was, what the previous 3 months were. Just let the season play out, get your results, make a tweak or two if you need to, move on to the next year, and kind of let 3 or 4 or 5 years build and see how the progress is before you just start trying to jump around from maybe different teachers or maybe different club companies, or maybe you're living in different towns. Some guys just can't stop moving. They just can't stop changing their environment. And so
Hmm.
one of the big things is if you can control your environment, you can generally control sort of your habits and your outcomes.
Yeah. So it's basically just be patient and keep trying to learn and get 1% better every day, right? I mean, that's
Exactly. Yep.
what it's all about. Yeah. No, I love that. So this is
Yep.
a buddy of mine. He says, while working through swing changes or new feels, do you commit to competing with it or just go tee it up and play?
I think that it was interesting. I just heard a good thing from Butch Harmon. Webb Simpson went to work with him right before the Waste Management Open, and Butch told him they had worked previously in the fall, and they worked a little bit on keeping the club maybe a little bit deeper on the backswing or something. But then by the time he got to see him before the Waste Management, he said, "Well, your club's opening a little bit faster, and I'd like let's see you kind of keep it a little quieter away from the ball." But he's like, "I only want you to hit 10 balls a day between Monday and Thursday thinking about this. And when you play the tournament on Thursday, I don't want you to think about it at all." So I think that's great advice. It's something I'd never, ever heard a teacher tell me.
Hmm.
Um, because what he's saying is you're good enough right now without this adjustment to go compete and play good golf. And if you go and you don't believe that what you have is good enough and you're constantly trying to make this improvement, you're probably going to have worse results and you're probably not going to trust it in the long term. So he said if you focus hard on 10 golf balls a day, it's going to bleed in there enough and you're going to get to go compete, have fun, and probably see some pretty positive results or just see any result. but you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to blame, you're not going to blame the lesson that's actually probably correct on your result. So I think that's great advice, and it's something that I probably haven't done well enough in my career because I think I am a little bit obsessive over, trying to make things better. And so when I am going through maybe a swing change or something, I am trying to take it to the golf course. I'm trying to take it to tournaments and, make it work. And if it doesn't work, then you're kind of in search mode instead of just saying, look, I'm going to go out there and play the golf course and hit what I have that day and just accept the results. And if I need to go back and focus more on what I learned the week before or focus less on it, then I'll know after the end of the day or the week.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice by Butch, and I love that mentality. I think you obviously have to have really good fundamentals to make that happen. You
Yeah,
know,
obviously, yeah.
yeah, but I think the majority of people playing competitive golf are probably good enough. So,
hmm
very good advice. How much do you use technology like TrackMan and other things? Maybe some like putting training aids, technology in your practice.
Yeah, so I've never been very heavy on tech, I wouldn't say. In the last few years, I've had access to a TrackMan, so I'll use it mostly for fitting clubs or just checking to see where my numbers are at that time. But I'm certainly not too meticulous over, what my path and face numbers are. As long as they're kind of showing up consistently, then I'm pretty happy with it. I've actually found it difficult to use TrackMan to change your impact numbers because I think that you actually need more quality swing and feel and pressure ideas to make that happen versus just saying, oh, I'm going to make the club move here or the club move there, because it's real easy to make a change that might not be something that's going to be beneficial to you long term.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
when it comes to putting, I do like the putting arc. I've always found that to be just a real simple, consistent way to focus on your path and club face, and that's really about it. Right now my probably my biggest piece of technology is a piece of plastic I put between my feet called the down under board that Bradley Hughes uses. So
I love that. Yeah.
that's about as technologically advanced as I'm getting in my game right now. And I
And when
think
when you're using that, you don't even
that
think. I mean, you just swing, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just a small thought of squeezing the board on the way down, and
Hmm.
there's been some really major improvements just to my control over my body and my ball striking that have come from it. I wouldn't
Hmm.
say there's been some drastic change in my golf swing. I think it's really just created a little bit more awareness and a little bit better timing in my golf swing.
How often do you use the down underboard while you're hitting golf balls?
I'll use it for 3 to 5 balls in a row, and then I'll hit some, 5 to 10 more maybe with that club. And then maybe if I pull out another club, I'll use it for 3 to 5 balls, and then I'll hit 5 or 10 more, and that'll probably be it. So if I use it for 10 balls in a practice session, that's about average. If I use it for 20, that's probably a lot that day. But the
Yeah.
thing is, I'm a year and a half down the road with that device now, so I'm feeling pretty good about where I'm at. And
Hmm.
I almost don't need it to feel it at the
Hmm.
beginning. You know, some of the drills I was doing in my basement, like the impact bag drill and a post impact bag drill, where you're sort of accelerating to the finish, I would put the board between my feet on every shot. So maybe I was maybe I was making 30 swings into an impact bag with the board between my feet, or I was making 30 swings a day to the finish with the board between my feet, just to really groove that sensation away from the golf course, so that when I went to the golf course, it was already sort of ingrained in my
Yeah.
swing.
Yeah. No, I love that. It's very interesting to hear how a player of your caliber uses training aids and
hmm
when they use them, when they don't use them. I think that's really important to understand. Good question for Matt Cohen. He's an academy player. What does it take to get from junior golf to college golf, and then especially the pro level in terms of, that's what his question is. But I guess he's asking in terms of how many rounds do you have to play, how many hours do you practice, that sort of thing. I would imagine that's where he's going with that question.
Yeah, I would say it takes a pretty strong commitment. even just to get from junior golf to college golf. If you're going to go play Division I golf, you have to be very committed to that sport, I think. And, I would say if you're still playing another sport like basketball or something in the winter, you're hopefully already in the mindset of using that sport to maybe make you a slightly better athlete that's going to translate to golf. I think your mind probably needs to be on golf first if you're going to make it to successful D1 golf. And I'd say from an hours and tournament standpoint, maybe outside of your high school season, you probably need to be playing 10 junior golf tournaments a year, I would say, trying to get maybe 20 to 30 competitive rounds a year. Really seeing some feedback, posting some top 5 results, whether it's state competition or some national competition, so that college golf coaches can see you. And, I think that's really the area that you've got, or maybe the time in your life where you have to learn how to win and contend, because you're a junior golfer. You're sort of at the bottom there in the scheme of competitive golf, and you've got to become one of the top players in your state, probably to go on to be a great D1 player. And then when you get to college, I think you've got to up those numbers a little bit, because you're going to play 13 tournaments in college at least a year, and then you're probably going to play 3 to 5 summer events. And so you're getting towards 20 golf tournaments a year. And then, you got your course workload and your practice at home. So, it becomes a very busy life that I think you have to be very committed to. And it has to be a priority for you to, if you want to make it, that, you're going to do everything you can to get stronger, hone your skills, compete when you're at home against your buddies or your college teammates, and then getting into some competition and, trying to contend to win, a tournament a year or so. And like I said before, going from college to professional golf is that ability to, take control of your life off the golf course and organize your travel and organize your schedule, and just do a really good job making sure every time you show up at a tournament, you're prepared. You feel like you've put in the hours, you've done the drills, you've seen the putts go in, you've beaten your buddy back home, you're better than, and you show up at every tournament ready to win the golf tournament.
I like it. It's basically a lot of hard work, right?
It's a lot of hard work, but
a lot
of fun. It's got to be fun for you. The people I know that succeed in golf, they mostly enjoy it, and the ones that tell you that they don't, they still do. They still they're still competing, they're still playing, they're still missing it when they're not playing.
Yeah. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? It's a tough question.
That's a tough question. Oh man, you really can't beat believe in yourself, right?
It's got to be from your dad.
No doubt. My parents always told me to believe in myself, and they always supported me in every event I played, and still do. And so, I think that's something. It sounds cliche, but it's something that you've got to be able to do from a pretty early age. When you get out in competition as a junior or college golfer, you've got to be able to just separate what's around you and say, I'm going to go do my best today, and I'm going to put up a good score, and I'm going to try and win this tournament. And you have to kind of lose that shame. There's no shame in any result. Whether you're finishing last or you're finishing first, you have to have no shame, and you have to just be able to deal with the battle.
Yeah, no, that's very, very good advice, actually. I got another pretty good question, and then one more after this, and then I'll let you go. You've been very patient here. From a friend of mine, Glenn Sutton here. He says, your first Masters, what did you love? What did you learn about Augusta, and how will you play it this year?
Man, I loved the golf course. I loved the environment. And, I just loved getting to fulfill the dream I had as a kid. When you watch it on TV all those years and you see all the amazing shots and the putts to win, getting to go compete in that environment on that golf course was really special. I learned that you really have to understand how that golf course fits for you. Just because you've watched Ernie, Tiger, Phil, VJ, all the guys over the years hit these amazing shots around that place, that might not be the way, that it's going to work out for you. And, the first round of my first Masters, I'm maybe 1 or 2 over through 12, still in pretty good position with 13 and 15 coming up. I had a good drive down the left side on 13, and then it got stuck in a tree, and it didn't come down. It was only off by a couple feet, but it turned into a 6 or 7. And then I spun the ball off the green on 15 and made an 8, and walked out with a 79 or 80 the first round, feeling like I really hadn't played poorly at all.
Yeah, I remember that.
But I probably got caught up in the situation where you're used to seeing guys wrapping around the trees on 13, hitting an iron in, where I've realized after just the next day, I realized, all I've got to do is hit it straight, right of the tree line on top of the hill, and I either have a 5-wood onto the middle of the green or I can lay up. But both shots are pretty safe, and you don't have to take on much danger off the tee on 13. And then same thing on 15. Usually the greens are firm. That year they were kind of soft. So you're on a downslope. It's not even a full lob wedge. You don't think you're ever going to spin it off the green because generally you don't see it on TV. So you've just kind of got to be mindful of, where you are, how the golf course is playing, and shut out sort of what you've seen because it's definitely the most watched tournament for every player. So it's just one of those places that everybody always says experience, experience, experience. And it's also one of those fields that's so small that, that there's about a handful or maybe a couple dozen players that get to play it so many times in a row. They're sitting there with such an advantage over the rest of the field every year. So I think it's just you have to play it really smart. You have to know your game, and you just have to kind of take what the golf course gives you and putt really well.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see you out there. I'll tell you that much.
I'm excited too.
Very fun. So I got one more question. I saved the best for last. This fella named Rock in DC here. Did your brothers play a role in your success?
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, I can remember as young as 6, 7, 8 years old, going out in the summers and toting our clubs around, playing 18 and just competing with each other, and then all the way up through high school. So, I love my brothers, and they've been so supportive over the years, and they definitely, were the guys I was trying to beat growing up, and trying to just beat their heads in every time I could. And I think that that drive and that opportunity to play with older people from an early age really pushed me to get good at an early age and give myself the best chance for future success.
Yeah, and I remember, you and I have spent a lot of time together. I remember you talking about your brothers and how much they helped you, and how resilient they made you. And it's one of those things that I respect you immensely for. And I think that you are very unique in how resilient you are as a person. You're one of the grittiest guys I've ever met in my life, and I respect you for that quite a bit. So
likewise.
I think everybody could look up to you and learn so much from you. And anyway, I appreciate you jumping on with us today, and I'm sure the Academy kids loved it, and everybody learned a ton. So very much appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I wish all your kids a lot of success and safe health during the quarantine. And just give me a call anytime you want to do this again.
All right, awesome, Brendon. Thanks. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Bill. You got it.
Guys, thanks a lot. We will catch up tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again. Over.